Welcome to episode 44 of Jungle Brothers Podcast. You can find us at junglebrothers.com. If you want help with your strength and mobility or your fight training or any of those things, get in touch. Glad to have you guys with us today. We've got Paul Fotofili in the house.
Hi.
We've got, not just yet, but probably coming late as per to your award. And then we've got our guest, Joel Costello.
Hello.
And myself, Joe Worthington. Guys, just a quick note. We'll have our jiu-jitsu program up and running full-time within the next few weeks. Our mezzanine is almost complete. So if you're interested in that, get in touch. Follow us on Instagram for some mad tricks and skills and instructionals and stuff like that. Thanks to our homeboy Tree and Panavore Cafe because we're drinking their coffee today. And that's what enables us to talk so much. If you didn't catch last week's episode, that was sick. That was with Sean Dykoff. He's a CrossFit guy, but we still love him. That was super good. Yeah, if you enjoyed the episode, please share it with a friend. Today we're going into the jiu-jitsu piece. Jolie is an old friend of mine and an old friend and has been you've been a part of our gym for a while now. We know each other through the jiu-jitsu world. Mate, would you like to give yourself a little intro? Tell us who you are.
My name is Joel Costello. I run Gracie Balmain, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and I've been training for maybe 16 years. I started 16 years ago, but had a little bit of a 4-year hiatus in there, unfortunately. I guess I'm always a bit of a curious guy into kind of fringe things and niche kind of sports and activities. And so I guess I was someone who I always loved to rumble as a kid, you know, like I loved rumbling with my mates and that kind of stuff, and kind of shamedly loved like WWF wrestling because of the moves, just because of the moves. I knew it was fake. I had this like love-hate relationship with it, but I used to try to pull off those moves on my mates when we were wrestling. And so then growing up, I kind of wanted to do martial arts and I tried Taekwondo a couple of times, and then just standing in line punching the air didn't do it for me. And so, I quit, and then I ended up wanting to go back. But it was not until I stumbled on the UFC as like a 17-year-old that I fell in love with that. Like I guess it was a bit of a wild, as a kid, you know, violent, you know, this wild, weird thing. I thought it was these underground illegal fights. And that started me on that interest in jiu-jitsu. My friend who initially got me into that was the one who said, man, I found a jiu-jitsu school. We should try it out. And then once I went there, I was hooked. And so it's kind of shaped, big part of my life. Like I don't know who I would be had I never started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Sick.
And I guess I don't know how to describe myself really.
What are the niche activities do you like doing? Fringe niche activities.
Yeah, okay. So it's like, I guess I'm just always interested in kind of bizarre, you know, like different, things like Wim Hof breathing, or I'll get into something and I'll get really into it. And, board games are another one. I know Joey loves his board games.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's the board game of choice?
No, I love Joel telling me about board games for hours.
No, I won't get started on it. But I'm just saying, not Scrabble and Monopoly. Like I hate those kind of games, but just interesting game like bluffing. I used to play a lot of poker as I was early 20s. I'd go to the casino and play that quite a lot. And then, and he came with bluffing kind of. I guess I'm like a creative guy. I like creativity.
Do you like playing things? Is that part of it?
Yeah,
like
I think
games.
I love puzzles. I like actually not jigsaw puzzles, but like mechanical puzzles, or kind of. I used to love logic thinking. You know, a lot of that. I was quite good at I love little illusions and kind of things that made you think outside the box. I think that's what I was always good at as the standard school system. I didn't line up perfectly with that, but when it came to creative thinking or solving strange things, I always love that. And I think that connects with jiu-jitsu in a way that I can be creative and try to solve problems in an abstract way.
That's
like
cool.
that.
Yeah, it's a nice way to think about it.
Yeah.
Where'd you grow up? What part of town?
So born in Sydney, grew up in Balmain, still actually living in Balmain, probably never leave. Or hopefully go for some short-term trips living somewhere else. But I love Balmain, and so I think traveled a bit, and I think I got a pretty good, born in a good spot. So that's where I've grown up.
Balmain's a good spot. You guys are just talking before, you got some mutual friends over that way, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're all down around there around school and stuff.
Yes, just used to do the pub circuit around there for sure.
Yeah.
When we left school, maybe a few years before we left school as well.
Yeah.
Before that, Balmain was it was the city. It was like, if you weren't, like, before we're 18, you didn't, you could go out and you'd take a bus to Balmain and then you'd walk down to a Porto down at Balmain shops.
Gosh,
and that would be your Friday night.
That was like the first Porto outside of Bondi.
Yeah,
It was. It was so good.
It was popping.
I miss that place.
But
man.
you had
I
to walk.
miss
You
that
had to
place.
walk past the town hall, and you could get bashed. Like,
It was rough. Balmain was rough. And
Yeah, I
people
remember
don't
it was
think
like-
it's like, they're like, nah, Balmain's, it's a
It's
rich
so
area.
upmarket
It's
now.
upmarket. But no, it was rough growing up, for sure.
it was right.
There was quite a few gangs around and,
It's got the highest amount of pubs in one suburb. Is
for
that right?
sure. It had at least
Yeah.
22,
And now?
Per capita would have,
Still-
some of them, a fair few have dropped off. And it feels like the vibe has dropped off, maybe just because I've gotten older and I'm not in it as much, but it's
Yeah.
definitely not the same. It feels like when we were younger, there was a lot of like people our age that would go out or a bit older. There was a big generation of that kind of.
Yep.
Whereas now it's a lot more. Those kind of old people have moved out, and the new people moving in have young kids. And it's a
Families
bit
and
more
stuff.
family,
Yep,
so
yep.
the pub culture is not where it was.
I've got like old roots in Balmain that I found out about. I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. My cousin was doing some research on our family lineage. You might know this, Paul. A photo that I had. I don't have it up at my house now, but my old place. It's just a moderate sized frame, but it's got a little. It's like a mug shot of a guy, kind of like from the 1800s. It's black and white. He's got a crazy moustache, and it's my great grandfather, and it's a mug shot from his arrest.
Wow.
It's his arrest sheet.
That's cool.
And he was arrested in Roselle, and on the back of the frame, my cousin got the charge sheet that the police filled out.
Yeah.
On what he was arrested for, and it also has like prior offences, and he's just got this long list of like drunken disorderly, assaulting a police officer, drunken disorderly. But apparently he found he looks like a bit of a scumbag.
Yeah,
That's the story it tells.
He's wearing Nautica.
yeah,
Air Max in it as well.
Yeah, polo hat.
Visor. But he was. My cousin found like a newspaper clipping from a newspaper back then that was talking about him saving a woman who was, I think she was assaulted by someone and had a bag stolen, and then he like chased the dude down and saved the day.
Nice.
Yeah, so he was like a scumbag, but
He had some
he had a
redeeming
good heart.
qualities,
Yeah.
Well, like Balmain was I think it was very wharfy. Like there was a lot of wharfs around it. Obviously, it's
blue
like
collar.
a peninsula, and then he had mines as well. So it was, I think, maybe when we were younger, there was still the ends of those, the kind of relatives of a lot of wharfies and a lot of miners, and so a lot more working class and a lot tougher than it is now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true, huh? Do you find, you've got an academy there, right? So you
That's
run
right.
Jiu-Jitsu Academy.
Uh-huh.
How many students you got?
About
ish?
135.
Sick.
So yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, cruisy little, good group. We got a really cool vibe. I think we got good people, good culture there. So that's something I try to foster.
I've trained there. They're fucking legends.
yeah,
Everyone's super nice. and
nice but tough.
hard, yeah.
Hard, yeah.
And do you think that that's a bit of the Balmain thing? Like,
Maybe,
bit
yeah.
hard-nosed?
Yeah, I could, I can't take all the credit for it. Yeah, I think it's a bit of that surprises me. Like having taught at Bankstown, I used to previously be one of the instructors at Bankstown for several years. And
Shout out to Sammy.
shout out to Sammy B, awesome school out there if you're ever in the area. And yeah, they had a lot of tough guys, like the Bankstown brings in a lot of tough people from around there. So I'd assume that Balmain would be quite a lot softer, but there's some tough guys there. Like we've got some of the day classes is just 10 beasts,
Going at it.
One girl might rock up, or one older guy. We got a shout out to Douglas. We got a 67-year-old student.
Cool.
Who's is like my hero. This guy he jumps in there with the young bucks and throws down, and so that's awesome to see. But yeah, we just got a good tough group. So.
Dude, you got that. There's an older guy. He's not that old. He's probably like early 40s.
Purple belt?
Maybe blue belt. Maybe a bit Italian. Part Italian guy goes real hard.
French, shorter guy.
Yeah, he's not French.
No.
He's like a 5-dot guy for sure.
I can't think of who
Don't
he
knock
is.
5-doc, bro.
No, not at all, bro.
Yeah.
It's my first soccer team.
Yeah.
But he goes hard, and you can ask Paulie when I was there once.
Yeah.
We were rolling together, and I think I caught him in something, and he wouldn't tap, and I sort of let it go, and he was a little bit out from as a choke,
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, what happened? Did the timer go?" And I'm like, "No, man, I just let it go." And he kind of laughed, like, "Don't do that." Like,
Yeah.
And then we rolled again, and I caught him in a choke, and he went out.
Oh, I know this is for sure.
And
I'm
he
thinking of.
didn't tap, and he passed out. And then I kind of, he was sort of on top of me. I think it was a bow and arrow choke. So I had to get my leg out from under him, and then I grabbed his legs and lifted him up. And then he came to and he got up and he had this huge smile on his face, and he's like, "Oh, did I just go out?" And I was like, "Man, you did. Like, are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." He was like, "Thanks for the roll. I've got to go, guys." And we're like, "Where are you going?" And he said, "I've got a competition at 2:00.
Oh gosh, he possibly did. But yeah, no, we don't tap out in Balmain. You know?
It's written across the doorway when you walk in.
No, I think this guy's a blue belt who just got it purple, so I'm thinking it is the same. I think he is French,
right.
but you wouldn't pick it. But
okay.
Yeah, good dude. And a little infamous for going out in, either tapping too late or he's got a kind of weak neck now. I don't know. But,
That's cool. So gameplay and jits, big part of your life.
Yeah, for sure.
How old are you now?
33, about to turn 34 in a few weeks.
Nice, homie. Mm-hmm. What date's your birthday?
The 9th of December.
Oh, savage.
Yeah.
We're both Sagittarius. That's cool.
Yeah. Represent.
Did you know that Bruce Lee was born on 27th of November?
I did not.
Did you know that? That's why I carry the nunchucks in my bag.
I saw them today as I grabbed one of the softballs to just do a little glute work while I was chilling downstairs. I saw the nunchucks and I thought about having a swing with them.
They're Timmy's nunchucks.
Yeah, right.
Timmy's got that pair they look like a mobility tool, but they're actually nunchucks.
No, I'm going to buy some and have a little side project I work on,
It's fun.
Get some nunchuck skills.
It's fun to have.
Yeah.
Man, how do you find, talk to us about your competition, your approach to competition, because we know your approach, but you compete a lot. I mean, you say you don't compete a lot. I think you compete quite a bit and to put it into context, you're running a small business, you're almost in your mid-30s. Competition is you could say it gets harder as you get older. What's your take on it?
I love the kind of challenging yourself, testing yourself where you're at, and that whole, that old saying that like your opponent is your teacher, the ego is the enemy, that kind of thing, where going in there and just doing it to test yourself, and I noticed as I got better, as much as you get harder as you get older, it also, the pressure builds as you get better at jiu-jitsu. You're expected to do better. That was something that as I got to like running my own academy, I felt, now all eyes are on me. I need to perform well because this is my livelihood. And so as a white belt, blue belt, you don't like to lose, but there's not as much on the line. And I felt that especially I had a back injury that I did just before I started the business, and it was kind of bad as I started it. So along with running the business and being injured, I had to take a couple of years off competing, and having really only just started to fire that engine back up and get back in there. And I'm looking to really start competing well at black belt, especially like next year, kick it off with Abu Dhabi trials and start to just compete a lot. Because I think for me, the secret was just to compete a lot. The more I competed, the more comfortable I became, and the better I did. And I went through a lot. I think I won my first competition as a white belt. As my coach Bruno Pano chucked me in. He's like, "You're ready, man." After not long, 3 or 4 months, I jumped in, and I think I was 17 years old, and I fought another 17-year-old, and I beat him, and I got that kind of probably helped to have that first win and get that little bit of encouragement, and then. Yeah, I won and lost a lot of competitions, and that brings us to when I first met Joey. There's a funny story, actually. I had like...
Oh, do tell.
Oh, yeah, I was a blue belt, and I had like my mom, my dad, my cousin, my Kiwi cousin, and his girlfriend, and a bunch of people wanting to come and watch. And so I was like waiting around in the bullpen. It was the Hoyler Cup. Like it was me and Joey. It was our first matchup. I didn't know Joey at all, and I'm kind of nervously waiting for them to arrive, and trying to warm up, but they were running late. So I'm kind of kept playing the door and thinking, when are they going to get in? And I added a little bit of stress for sure. And then me and Joey got in there. And all I remember, and I may be wrong, but I remember Joey's beating me points-wise, like 5-2 or something around that. And I have mount at the end, but not quite because Joe's still got my ankle. So I'm still in his guard. And I remember my coach Bruno going, "Go, Joe, pass the guard." And I'm exhausted. Like my fitness is always maybe my Achilles heel. And I definitely wasn't as fit as I should have been. And I remember, Joey's just fighting for dear life. I couldn't get my leg free for the life of me. And I finally lose on points. The timer goes. I couldn't get the submission or even get my leg free for the points. And I remember going outside, getting out of the thing and started vomiting. And that's when my whole family rocked up. All my family arrived. They're like, "Hey, Joe." And I was like, and they're like, "Have we missed it?"
How'd you
like,
go?
You missed it.
Oh,
I was
wow.
like in between vomits. And so, and that was my first meeting of Joey. And then it was Joe was someone I met, like I'd bump into in the street after that one match. And it felt like we'd known each other way longer than we had, like super friendly. And so then that's how we kind of build our friendship. We end up fighting again like years later, a while later. But
a New South Wales Cup, something.
You
bashed me.
I got it back.
My back. You took my back, and you hipped. You had your hooks in, and then you hipped in, and I felt like my back just snapped. I was like, oh, I'd never been put in that position.
I was like, this is for making me vomit.
That was so dominant. Yeah.
What was the vomit from? Just like relief,
It was just full
a purge?
cardio, just like exhaustion, probably like too many extracurricular activities that weren't helping my fitness. But I was the kind that when I had that hiatus, I'd actually terrible fitness and I was 19, 20, kind of going out partying with friends and drinking and I stopped for all that time and I hated myself for stopping. I'd try to literally 4 or 5 months, 6 months gap. I'd try to get back to training, train real hard. All these guys I didn't know would start to give me trouble. Or the guys I used to beat, I couldn't beat them. Yeah. And I would finish the class and I would have to run to the bathroom and be sick in the bathroom. So
far out.
People are like, I've never been able to push myself to the point of vomiting, but I think that I was living pretty wild back then, so it made sense.
What a cool story.
That was epic. It's so funny too, thinking about. I remember when I first saw you, because you had you like to wear a nose clip in competition.
Yep.
How opens up your nasal
passage? It's
passage?
just for intimidation, man.
It's like some NFL shit.
Yeah, no, it does. It's like, so my nose is bad. It's like my mom's got bad sinuses. I've always had bad sinuses. Still trying to figure out if it's a dairy thing or what it is. I think it may be a dairy thing, but I do love my milk. And it's just literally like someone pulling your nostrils open 10%, 15% maybe.
Like you see, it's kind of like what you see. What do they call the Olympic sport where they do the stuff in the water?
Swimmers, synchronized
swimming. It's kind of like what they wear.
But that's a peg for them.
But the complete opposite.
It's the complete opposite, but it looks the same. And I remember, when this talks of like the stress in competition. Mm-hmm. But when I saw you and I saw that, I'm like, oh, he looks like a bad person. I'm like, he looks like tough. I'm like, what's with that fucking thing on his nose? I'm like, oh man, this is going to be hard. You make this story in your head and you're like, fuck, he's not a nice guy. He wants to hurt me. Like,
100%. You see someone do a certain warm up or something, and you start to doubt or you start to run things in your mind. Like, and that leads into, because I started trying to do a lot more positive thinking, and I realized, like, having not trained, if I would compete, those thoughts would ramp up. Whereas competing and winning a lot, even without doing kind of focusing on a positive mental state, you'd automatically think, I've beaten a lot, I've won these last competitions. You'd have that air, and your brain would feed you those good kind of thoughts. And then, so recently having like a bit of a hiatus between comps, I would try to tell myself, positive kind of reinforcement. And I think that's huge. If you stand there looking at the dude you're fighting, training and warming up, and you psych yourself out, like Joe was saying, where you start to think, oh man, look, he's got pretty big, arms, or he looks really tough.
He's punching himself in the face.
Yeah, I seen him beat this guy or that guy.
Motherfucker's just drinking straight Valvoline.
Yeah, exactly. So that, I think that makes a huge difference. Is that the way you talk to yourself before and during the match as well. If you're thinking that kind of stuff while someone's on mount on you, you're never going to get out. Whereas if you have that, like, I never get beaten, or I always get out of this position, or that kind of mindset. It's like when you wrestle a white belt or a blue belt that you're better than. They could get a good position on you, but in your mind you're like, no, I'm definitely better than this guy. I will get out.
Yeah, and you do.
Yeah, and opposed to maybe there's a tough blue belt who might be able to tap you, but in his head he's like, oh, this guy's trained for so long, or this guy's a black belt.
I'm the underdog.
I'm not going to be able to finish it, and have that little bit of doubt. And I think that can kind of tip the coin either way, depending.
That's so true. I remember, I've only been in a couple comps, but looking across the room, and I can't remember who told me, but they always seem to, the opponent always looks twice as big as they
Yeah,
appear.
yeah.
You think that they're bigger than you
Yeah.
physically.
And they look they look really good.
I had that
Jiu-jitsu,
too.
which,
Yeah.
what the fuck does that look like?
I know, exactly. But this guy was Brazilian, I went against.
Oh, that's
And he
scary.
was black. And he looked like, his muscles were striated. And I was like, man, he looks tight and strong.
Yeah. Yeah, it's natural.
I was
Everyone does that, I think.
shitting myself.
Everyone does that.
Then you
unless-
bash the guy.
I beat him.
That's it.
On points. But
Well, it's funny that my experience of that comp with you was I had the complete opposite experience, and it was the only comp I've ever had like that. I had a new girlfriend who was coming to watch, and it's funny, she was Brazilian, so I felt like some kind of pressure because I'm performing in her national sport, and like and I'm introducing her to it. Yeah, like she didn't know shit about it, right? But so that was part of it. But I was running late for the comp. I was
that's
running,
stressful.
and I remember being in Bondi. The comp was in Homebush. I'm in Bondi, and I get a text from Marcus, my teammate. He's like, "Bro, they're calling your division," and I'm like, "Dude," yeah, we didn't have like fucking Google Maps and shit. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm probably like 30 minutes away, bro. I'll come, whatever happens. And we get in, we park the car, like race to the joint, trying to find it. It's a little fucking hall out the back in that tent. And I get in there, and Marcus is always like, "Bro, you're on now." And I literally pulled my clothes off, chucked my gi on, ran onto the mats. Didn't have any time to think about my competitor or
warm up.
nothing. I had no time for any of it. And it actually put me in the
helped you.
best mind frame.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I think I'm quite good at talking myself out of things. And it just didn't give me a chance to have any of that negative self-talk.
For sure. Yeah, the opposite of that, get into a comp for 4 hours early. And I think watching your teammates compete, that anxiety builds up. And plus, the longer you've got to dwell on
Ruminate.
it. Whereas, when you just get there and go, you haven't had that stress. Other than the stress of running late, you haven't had that stress of looking at your opponents or worrying about everything else.
It's tough because you couldn't do that every time.
No, it's really
Doesn't
hard.
work every time.
Well,
Yeah.
sometimes you can do it where you're like, okay, my fight's at 1 o'clock. I'll get there 12:30, 30 minutes, 45 minutes to warm up, perfect. And then they're running 2 hours late, and you end up sitting there for like 2.5 hours, sweating on little things.
I remember because I used to go and watch Joey at his comps, and often I'd be the filmer there with Phoebe, his sister, be on the sidelines
Cameraman.
cheering. Yeah, but you remember you used to sleep between you used to take little naps?
Did I?
Full Cron Gracie
Yeah.
style.
I think that
You'd
was
go on-
probably for advice from my coach. Hey, Dan.
Yeah, you'd go and lie still.
I think
Yeah.
there's a lot to that. Yeah.
It's a busy hall, and you just like go find a corner, and people are warming up in little corners, and you just lie down and just like close your eyes. And I didn't know what you were doing at the time, meditating or what.
Yeah, funny.
Remember
Yeah,
that?
I do. I do vaguely. I think it was probably just in my coach was like, "Man, go like," because I'd probably be like, "Oh man, I'm
Anxious,
stressed," and when am I on? And he'd be like, "Man, it's going to be a while. Like, just go rest."
I think that could give an edge too. If you're competing with someone, you see them sleeping in a corner, and you're there anxious and nervous. You're like, damn, look at this guy. He's so relaxed,
He's chilling.
Damn, I know.
He doesn't give a
Yeah,
fuck.
yeah, exactly. People are warming up right around him, and he's just zenned out.
But the problem then with that is that when you go to jump on for your next match, you have to like reactivate the system. That's
right.
And that's hard. I remember that feeling like, do I do jump squats? Do I do some burpees? Like, how do I like reactivate?
Yeah, slap
and,
yourself.
and in a way, I think it's just staying active all day it helps.
Did either of you see the UFC 244 just finished? Did you
Yes.
see Darren Till and his comments after the fight?
No, I saw he
About
opened
fear?
up. I saw a little video said he really opened up, didn't he? And
Yeah, he
said-
really opened
I
up.
Didn't
Did
watch
you see
it,
it, Joe?
No.
Okay, you should watch it. He is telling in an interview with BT Sport afterwards, and then he did an interview with Ariel Hawani yesterday as well, and opened up even more. Same again, and he's talking about how, and for like running late, he was late to this event. Did you
Right.
see that? Like they had
No.
visa issues, and he turned up in the States 2 days before the fight.
Oh shit.
Coming from the UK and stuff. So that was a whole thing.
Mm.
And in a way, it helped him because he didn't have to go through the anxieties or the busy press shit during the week.
Right.
Although, he had to like...
The jet lag maybe
The
still
jet lag
there.
and all, it was all there. And anyway, that helped, but also added to the doubt as well. But he was saying how he was out the back thinking of faking an injury.
Wow.
He didn't want to go out there. He was shitting himself. And he said he was scared, and he was like all this dialogue, the stuff that fighters don't.
That's
usually
amazing.
say.
Yeah, that a
He's
lot.
like, I
Probably
was-
90 of the, large percent of them are thinking, but they'll never say.
Well, as he said, I'm real, and that's why people love me.
Yeah.
He's like, I was scared. I was scared to go out there, and I was like looking at fake an injury and yada yada. And he went further on in the Ariel Hawani show about how a lot of people think that, and he thinks that a lot. And there's a lot of fear going? I know it's not exactly the same thing because, I don't know, the striking I think brings
getting
a
your
different
face
element
punched in would
different. But can you relate to parts of that?
Oh,
like
yeah.
I know you were...
For sure. It's like, because I know it's almost, for me, the cardio, the feeling of that horrible, you're going to be exhausted. Like that, you know, not so much that you're going to get hurt. That's not what I'm worried about. If it was Ken punch in the face, probably a thing, but it's that I'm going to be really exhausted and it's only going to be halfway through and I'm going to push. I'm going to push no matter what. And then you've got everyone cheering for you and you just, you know, that feeling of being so tired. You know, I've had a bunch of matches where I was so exhausted, where, you know, you're dizzy and you go and sit down and you feel like you're going to be sick and you're like lightheaded, and then they're like, Joel, you got to go in for the next round. You know, you just won that first one and you think, I can't even stand up. I'm about to be sick, and you want me to go again. So it's that fear of, how tired am I going to feel? And I'm sure with MMA it's times 5. You know,
is that still, you still get that to this day?
Yeah, like I think so. It's for me, when I compete, the first match is nervous, and then if I win that one, I feel really good. I feel like that. And even the guy I'm probably fighting, he's won his first as well, but it just puts me in a good mindset. Yep. But yeah, like that last super fight that I had, I definitely felt nerves. You know, I think I was better than I expected, but yeah, I definitely felt the nerves and the anxiety and that you know, in the lead up. I've had it before where I've thought, I don't want to do this, and you want to pull out. But this one I felt pretty good. I got a good 7-week training camp for a long time. A lot of the other ones I've taken on 3 weeks' notice. My fitness wasn't great. I took it, and then I tried to get my fitness up. And in the back of my head, I thought, I'm not as fit as I should be. And that starts to play on your mind a little bit.
I was going to ask you, so yeah, a lot of fighters, I hear they take confidence from the training camp.
Yeah.
So like that feeling can hopefully be nullified if you have like a sweet training camp, all your numbers are up on cardio and strength and otherwise. Do you find that's the case, and what do you do for your strength and conditioning?
Yeah, for in terms of like my like training, like that last one, I was on fire in the gym. Like I think 3 weeks out, I was on fire. And then it was like 2 weeks out, I felt like maybe I peaked a tiny bit early. Like I was like, wish the comp was closer because I was on fire. And then it started to, you know, you have some of those roles where it's actually one of my good training partners, Badger, Hugh Fletcher. He,
like that.
Yeah,
He's a savage.
He's a savage. And I went to one of the advanced classes at the like headquarters for the Gracie team. Like had someone coaching my classes so I could get in and train with some of the advanced guys. And we always talk a little bit of smack. We're like rivals and kind of nemesis, you know, good mates, but we always push each other. And we slapped hands. He caught me straight away. He almost got to my back and he caught the collar. And I was getting out. He didn't quite have control of my body, but he had this collar wrapped around my neck. And as I was trying to get out of it, I remember thinking my head was just about to slip free, but it felt like it got tighter just before it would kind of pop out. And then next thing I knew, I was having an amazing dream. You know, I'd like discovered the meaning of life or something like that. And then I'd wake up to my mate, who was one of the assistant coaches of that class, holding my feet, and I'd passed out. And I was like, man, and I looked back, and there was a minute left, and I was like, let's keep going, man. I wanted to get it back. But and then I wanted to rematch him in the third roll of the night. I was like, let's go again. Come on, give me another match. And like did better on him. He didn't choke me out, obviously. And so that kind of rattled me a little bit. And I was like, man, this is not good. However, then we trained. I asked him to come to one of the comp classes that week, and I got it back real nice. Like I got a very quick submission, takedown, almost got his back and an armbar, really nice. So that helped pick me back to where I needed to be. Because that would have played
the comp.
Maybe a week out or just a little bit more. So that, because also Badger has fought the guy who I was fighting and had beaten him.
Oh, had he?
So in my head, it's like if I can beat Badger,
beat him in gi or no gi?
In the gi. He got injured beating him. So that was on my head as well. Got like his knee got badly injured as he's taking the guys back. The guy's trying to footlock him. Warwick as well. Shout out to Warwick. He's a cool guy. And
Warwick.
And yeah, he trying to avoid, instead of escaping the footlock, he went for the guy's back and sunk a choke. And his knee, he got bad. Ruptured his LCL. But he got the win.
Got the
so
choke.
I knew he was dangerous. I knew Warwick was tough, but I thought Badger was my measuring stick, and so having him choke me out was not a good feeling. But yeah, so in terms of that, and then I used to do strength and conditioning with a friend of mine, and now I'm pretty much exclusively doing it with you guys here at the Jungle Brothers. So shout out to your good work, because it helped me through the match, particularly like my mobility. I think I was focusing more on strength and cardio, And I think probably apart from my cardio being something I need to keep in check when I'm competing, my mobility is like my biggest kind of hole, where I can be fast, quite strong and kind of technical, but my mobility's always been my crutch. And so working on that with you guys has been awesome. And I was just saying before the podcast how it's actually that old back injury and a couple hip and groin injuries have been really ironed out from working with you guys. And then being able to pass that on to my students has been cool too, showing them what they, to avoid ending up tight and stiff and injured, get onto it, early. Like I was never looked into it much till, 10 plus years of jiu-jitsu and my body getting tight and sore. I started to try to catch up on all my mobility work and I'm telling them, get on it early. Stop it before it starts.
So obviously I knew where you did your training and I just wanted to know. But I don't really know.
Shout out Jungle Brothers.
Shout out Bulletproof.
Yeah, Bulletproof for BJJ.
We've got one of the directors here with us now.
The combo.
But I don't really know what goes on inside the sessions.
Mm-hmm.
There's strength work, there's mobility work. How many times a week do you train? Or obviously you do specific sessions and then you do some warm-ups with your students?
So I come in here on a Wednesday with Joey and Adam Childs, who was I had on the podcast not long ago,
Legend.
and then Legend, and a couple other boys, Jake, and it's normally just a small group on that Wednesday, which is really nice.
The Twin Towers, we would call you too.
yeah.
It's massive.
Two very tall boys, and then we do a little bit of kind of like mobility work with soft tissue work or kind of some really nice activation drills that I've loved sharing them with all my students. And then we get into kind of like some strength work, supersets of, couple of, upper body, lower body stuff.
Yep.
And then finish it with some, core work and more kind of mobility strength stuff. So I've really loved that. And a lot of the activations, a lot of the, what would you call it, mobilizations that we do at the start, Joey?
Yeah, mobility activation.
Mobility stuff.
Activation.
It's been really good. Like that was one thing Joey said, I'm starting this Bulletproof for BJJ program. And I knew how good it would be for me, but he was reminding me like, you can share this on with your students and it'll be a huge, benefit to them. And I think just the standard Brazilian Jiu Jitsu warm up of running around, doing forward rolls and
jumping jacks.
Yeah, jumping jacks is like a little bit overdone and there's better time spent on your mobility. And so I always run through these. So apart from doing the one session with Joe, I'm doing it at least 3 other times, through the week, doing the ones that I need and mixing it up and kind of making sure I'm hitting all of the some of the ones we haven't worked, like Joe might not have run us through for a little while. I'll do them with my students, and then when Joe introduces a new one, I'll add that with the students as well. And so they really like it as too.
So good.
Yeah, so it's awesome.
And how do students take it? I mean, often like they're not, say, at your level with your level of experience and your time, competing and being tight and whatnot. Like at that point, they're really just hungry for all the information and the knowledge, and they just want to roll. Everyone just wants to roll. Let's just get to the last 20 minutes.
Yeah. Why are we doing all these Cossack lunges? Let's start choking each other.
Fighting.
I tell them, I say, guys, like, do this stuff now. And I just preach from what I say. Like, it's easy to just jump in and roll and do that, but over time, you're going to get way more injuries. I talk about injury prevention, being able to hit more positions because you've got that little bit more range.
Yeah.
And I think just, the more mobile you are, the more, more abilities you'll have in certain positions. And then the injury prevention's huge. So I just preach all that stuff to them. And it's funny as well because the one little part of it would be that when I'm showing these mobilities, I'm not great at them, so I'm showing them and sometimes I'll point at one of the students who's doing a really good job and I try to get to, just like Vicky's doing over there. That's where we want to get to. But a lot of my students are crazy tight, even though they've only done jiu-jitsu for, some of them less than 2 years, they're very tight just naturally. Yeah. And then jiu-jitsu's probably tighten them up even more. So they know they need it. And so I love it.
It's cool, man. I always think back to like the amount of times I've tried to teach a mobility drill to like academy owners or like black belts at the academy, because it's always the black belts that are the most broken, right? They've been in the game for the longest.
For sure.
They've had the most wars. They're usually the oldest or the older people in the academy on the whole. And at the end of class, I'll always do some kind of stretch or whatever, like when I finish training, and invariably someone will end, oh man, like I got this problem like with my hip, and I'll be like, man, let me show you this like one stretch. It's gonna like do great things for you. And I can't count the amount of times I've taught it, and they've given it a go, and they're just like, oh, it hurts too much, man, and they stop it, and then they just sit there, like the conversation's over.
Yeah, that wasn't the answer they wanted. They wanted that quick, instant. Oh, the pain's gone. I'm healed.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, fuck, like, it's so funny because I guess once you've gone that far, and it's kind of also probably something that comes along with being a long time academy owner and being a long time black belt. Your days of being a student,
being a beginner,
a little bit behind you.
Yeah.
So you don't want to suck at this thing.
No,
You're like, man, I'm the fucking boss.
Yeah,
here, right?
everyone's used to seeing me do the moves amazingly, and now I'm the worst at these, little lunges where we're going side to side or something. Or
yes.
I can't even get nearly into the position, and that's so true.
That's
like one of my
true.
head instructors, black belt Paul, he's amazing jiu-jitsu,
Savage.
but super, super tight, and he needs that stuff. And it's almost like the people that can't do it, have the most trouble with it, need it the most. And that was me as well with that Cossack lunge. I hated it. It was like so uncomfortable. I felt uncoordinated. I felt weak. Like I felt I wasn't even doing it right. And it's a slow slug. It's not like you can do it for 3 days and you're awesome at it. You got to do it. And after months, you start to be like, I'm a little bit better at it now. And so, yeah, it's one of those things you just got to put the ego to the side and like do the work.
It's kind of the same as jits, isn't it? Because jits, you can't ask when you're going to get better.
Yeah.
You can't ask like, oh, when do I get my next belt? Or it's just like, just fucking keep doing it, keep showing up, and do what the coach says, and that's the best you can do.
Yeah, the results will come. You just got to keep going.
Well, for people who are listening who don't really know much about jits, like obviously I know a bit about jits. I like it. I love it a lot. And I've done it, but can you explain to them what it is about jits that tends to have people lock up a little tighter? Because it's a wonderful thing, and it sounds like, oh shit, I never want to do jits because I'm just going to get tight.
My body up.
Yeah, because it doesn't. It also can unlock your body, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, look, I guess, the first thing to say about that is that any sport you do will have positive effects on your body and negative effects, and the more you do that sport and the longer you do it for, the greater both of those, those lists of effects will be. So there's all the great things that come with jiu-jitsu, which we don't need to go into. That's, but like the confidence and the athleticism and mental strength and learning this skill and technicality and all that, being able to kick someone's ass. But in terms of the negative stuff, it's essentially a grappling-based sport. And the most effective position for you to grapple in is with your back rounded, so in flexion. So whether you're standing up, and if you watch like two wrestlers or two grapplers facing off each other, the back will be rounded, the arms will be held close to the body, and the legs will be bent. That's a standard like grappling posture. So, and that's important because if you let your limbs extend from your body, or if you extend your spine, you open yourself up for attack. So it's in your best interest to stay flexed and closed.
It's almost like animals it's like protecting the
torso
and keeping things around the core, to protect your vulnerable areas.
It's the organs that...
Yeah, it's very similar.
Exactly.
You kind of see animals in that pose when they're fighting.
So then you think so that's like the base of grappling, but then you think about jiu-jitsu, which its unique point is that it has the guard, which is where you attack from a lot of the time, or let's say half of the time.
Which is on the bottom, using your legs to keep the partner off you or control the partner.
So imagine you're on your back and you are resisting attack, so your elbows are in and your legs are in. So you're in that kind of fetal position, but lying on your back, and you're using that to attack, and you build an immense amount of strength there. But what happens is you're further just reinforcing that flex position. So all of the muscles on the front chain of the body, the hip flexors, the abs, the pecs, the elbows, everything gets tight in keeping you closed, right? And so that's where you're powerful, right? And any guard player, they're like, you can't get inside. It's like a little ball, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the game.
Yeah.
But the trade-off is it only suits you in that environment. Then when you go to move around in everyday life, you want to be able to open the spine and open the shoulders. Or if you want to go and train at the gym, you want to deadlift, you need to be able to maintain a neutral spine. And so there's this negative effect is that you reinforce this tightening of all the muscles on the front chain, and the body just starts to morph into that shape. rounded back, head goes forward, shoulders go forward.
It's also like even people that don't train jiu-jitsu, it's just like an exaggerated version of people sitting on the couch too long, sitting in their car, on their phone.
100%.
So if you're probably doing all that stuff anyway, and then you're fighting in this position with the kind of seated position where your body's in. So yeah, you get mad at jiu-jitsu, but then yeah, you're not. You know, those positions we work on, you can't do them in jiu-jitsu because you're giving away your arm or your position. So you need to kind of balance it out, right?
Yeah, and you got to think, man. You make that. We sort of our body will become what the positions that it spends time in, right? Like it will just morph to that. That's what our fascia does. It will just if you spend time in that position all the time, your body will morph into that shape because it's energy efficient, and your body's searching for efficiency wherever it can find it. Say in jiu-jitsu, like, yeah, just by nature of the sport, you reinforce all this stuff. But like, think about like when you say you're having a training session and you're having a bunch of hard rounds and you're rolling with someone, and say you've got someone in like a guillotine, which for people that can't imagine that, imagine you got someone in like a headlock. So you got their head in between, like under your armpit, and you're squeezing them, and you got your legs wrapped around them, and you're on your back, and you're trying to like finish them with this choke, and they're defending it. How many times have you held someone in a guillotine for like 2 minutes? 2 minutes actively contracting every muscle in your body in that position as hard as possible, and then you finish it or they escape. But you just spent 2 minutes reinforcing with great contraction in that position. So, man, that's hardcore like strength training. So you're going to put you're just really digging that hole of reinforcing those shapes. And so, yeah, if you don't do something to try and fight back against the other way, then you go deeper into that hole, and that's where the injuries and just general well-being, I think, having the sore hips, waking up with your sore shoulder, bad back, all that stuff just becomes part of daily life. And I mean, if you know, like we all know, old jits players, that's kind of the story. You end up in a lot of pain, and the lucky ones are the ones who don't, but I haven't really met many of them yet. I did see Hoyler Gracie, to mention his name again, doing like a side split stretch.
He's amazing, yeah.
And he's like, guys, got to stretch after class. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like that's a good example.
Yeah.
But I know I've never seen many other black belts stretching after class.
No, that's it. You do the hard rounds, and you jump in the car, drive home, and you get out of the car, like can't even stand up tall, the body's locked up.
Struggling to get the acai in your mouth.
But yeah, that's so true. And I think it is taking that time to open it out. And you don't need to spend, but like you said, if you're holding guillotines on people all the time and contracting at max force, you don't need to spend equal amount of time doing the opposite, but just doing a bit of it will make a big kind of big gain or big difference. So. I'm playing catch up. Like I wish I did this 10 years ago when I was, before. I was just saying to Marco actually before the podcast how my dad was always inflexible. Like he was always could never touch his toes. And I did little athletics as a kid. That's what my dad pushed me into as a 5-year-old, and I was quite good at it, and I enjoyed it. But he could never touch his toes with straight legs, and I couldn't either as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old. So I think I'm more flexible now than I've ever been in my life, and
cool.
And yeah, which is good. And my mum and my sister could touch their toes, but I just was like, it's my dad can't, I can't. It's just the way it is. My dad was really good on pushing me to train and work hard. He didn't push me to stretch because it just wasn't something he was naturally good at or worked on. And I didn't realize just by putting the work in that I could be a flexible person. If I work at it. And I'm looking for like a 5-year goal to be considered a flexible person by people, because I'm always like the stiff, inflexible guy.
You just need to change who you ask to review your flexibility.
Yeah, there were people sometimes people when they see me wrestling, they think they're like, oh, you're so flexible, you can do this. I'm not flexible, I'm not gonna be able to do it. And I go, honestly, man, I'm not a flexible guy. Maybe I'm taller, so it helps me look like flexible in certain positions.
And you know how to work.
Yeah, the angles and move. Yeah, they're moving the hips a little this way or that way will make it feel easier to put my foot behind here. Whereas the beginner might think they forget to move their hips, and so they don't think they're flexible enough. But it's just an angle thing or a movement.
You know what would be cool in the bulletproof thing is if you had like gradings. So you have mobility grading. Yeah. So like, what belt would you say he's on for that? For
we totally.
Positions?
JT and I have been throwing that out.
With one stripe, maybe 2 stripes.
That's what I'm saying.
Did you see on that? JT did a video the other day with Bernardo Faria.
No.
In BJJ Fanatics.
Cool.
And Bernardo's like, this guy. He's like multiple time world champion, like super famous jiu-jitsu player, now runs a big online, an online resource for jiu-jitsu instructionals and stuff where we sell our DVD. It's called BJJ Fanatics. His
Awesome.
It's a mad resource.
Yeah, so good.
But JT was in the States, and so he went to his studio and caught up with him. And he took him through three like bullet stretches that we use a lot. Mm-hmm. And Bernardo was fucking dying.
Frothing? He was loving it?
No, he was hurting.
In the video.
Oh, man, yeah. And I saw people commenting on there like, yo, Bernardo's like ex-7-time world champion, and this guy's kicking his ass. Yeah. It was like, oh, this one's a bit tight, James. Like, it was so funny.
Guys,
man.
huge honor from me.
Yeah. Yes, guys, in my opinion, one question.
Yeah.
But so,
I love that.
yeah, it was super funny, man. But yeah, JT had that, and JT's my other half of Bulletproof, right?
Yeah.
He wanted to have the
JT won.
the bulletproof challenge, which is essentially a set of movements or like a workout that you complete, and you get scored across the workout.
So you can rank yourself
and
up.
you get ranked. You get ranked as like white up to black belt.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I think it's a mad idea.
Gives people goals, like as much as like touching your toes might be the first one if someone's got really tight hammies or back, whatever. But yeah, then being able to go past that and have your some goals to aim for. Your
yeah,
stats.
it'd be sick.
So much fun.
Because we had the first, we got a couple of guys, Mikhail, who you know from Melbourne.
Yep, legend.
He's a little guy, jacked.
Yep.
And then we got another guy, Jake O'Driscoll from Perth, who's in Bulletproof. He's jacked.
Yep.
And he's pretty moderate height. But Jake asked on the Instagram, he was like, I think I said, I opened up the Insta to ask a question, and he said, who's more jacked, me or Mikhail? And so we thought, let's run the chat. Like, let's introduce the
Who's
challenge.
more jacked as in mobility wise, like bulletproof?
I think
for
he said
BJJ?
bulletproof jacked.
Yep,
Yeah. So I was like, all right, we need something like you have to be strong and athletic, but you also got to have the range. So it'll be an all-encompassing kind of exam.
Sweet, I like it.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
I like it.
Be cool.
How exciting.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's it's an important thing to mention. Like, I'm guessing, say, with your lower, like the newer students you have, let's say white belts or even people that have been there for a longer time, they probably don't, a lot of them wouldn't see the value in the stuff you're showing them from, the mobility perspective. They wouldn't necessarily see the value that much because they're not necessarily in such a bad place yet.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're telling them, hey man, you guys need to do this so you don't end up like tight and whatever. And they're like, yeah, but I'm not. So,
yeah, it's like the kid, don't touch this hot pan. It's quite hot, and it's not until they touch it that they realize it really,
Oh, it is hot.
Yeah, he's telling the truth.
Yeah.
But they also wouldn't know any better. Like, as in, like if they hadn't trained at any sort of martial arts academy before, like they walk in. If now it's like a new wave of folks. So you go in and you're just standard. If you don't mention anything, is like we do this warm up before class. That's just all they know.
Honestly, the feedback is that the people prefer it over doing laps and doing forward rolls. Especially like I think for the new students and that early days, you need to work on your forward rolls. You need to know how to backward roll over each shoulder, so that if it comes up in a wrestle, you can safely go over the shoulder you need to go over, or break falls are important and learning to hip escape. But when you've trained for 2-3+ years, you don't need to always work on them every single class. It's kind of like 10 or 15 minutes wasted. So they prefer to.
Good point.
We do our mobility, do a lot of that, the joint circles. We'll mix it. Some days joint circles, some days, up hip flexor stretch against the wall, kind of like the active pigeon stretch style. All those kind of ones we'll do. And then we'll kind of warm up with movements, warm up with techniques, so that you're warming up while learning something
that
you've not mastered, as opposed to just warming up with a forward roll, back roll that you've done 100,000 times.
Yep. On autopilot.
Yeah, exactly.
That's such a good point, hey.
So a lot of them like it. So and also I'll point it out, like, it's not, even if they've never trained jiu-jitsu, most of them need this stuff because they're just sitting all day. They're on the couch. They're on the office chair. So I think it's stuff that, even though it's great for a long-term jiu-jitsu practitioner, it's great for just general health. People don't do this stuff. Their hip flexors haven't been in that position. When you're up against the wall and you're pushing into the wall, really opening it up, you don't hit that in day-to-day life if you're just, doing your job, hanging out with your family.
It's a good point. That's, I guess, the other side of it. And very much the message, say, of our gym, right, is that all of us, irrespective of what sport you play or where you're at in your training journey or whatever, all of us are living in a way that's kind of like our modern environment is. Our bodies are now out of alignment with what they were designed to do. So we're all in a deficit in regards to mobility anyway. So it's like, yeah, fuck, everyone's got to do something.
Yeah. So there's no people other than the people are like, I don't want to do this because they're so bad. So the people that don't want to do it are generally the ones that need it the most. They're so bad at the Cossack lunge that they can't even get nearly into it.
Yeah.
And if the ones that give a little bit, you're like, you need this, man. So I don't feel any remorse for making them do it. I'm like, you'll thank me later if you keep doing this. You'll be, mobile as and like a supple panther and
Panther.
Sexual panther.
Man, so talk to me about the competition piece. You mentioned Warwick before.
Yeah.
I saw you compete against him. What was the subversion?
A subversion, yeah. It was like the subversion. It was like a really cool jiu-jitsu show, one of the bigger kind of shows in Australia. And even Mikhail, who mentioned before, he said he's competed in America and in England at multiple shows and said it was one of the best productions he'd seen. So it was a really
sick.
George Hanlon's the promoter of that. He's a really cool guy and doing big things for like Australian jiu-jitsu.
It was a fucking cool comp.
And yeah, they put I think he worked with MV. I can't remember the exact production name, but they do like car shows and big shows and productions. So he worked with them or was partnered with them and did. Went balls to the wall and tricked it out with awesome lighting and smoke cannons and effects and big screens.
Did you have a walkout song?
Yeah, I had a walkout song. It was called Gallantry by Sam. It wasn't a hip hop song, which is,
Did you pick it?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I picked it, yeah. So it's I'd used it before in Melbourne. I was at a super fight, and it's just, I have a friend who works in, he's actually like a video guy and lives in Northern Territory, Jack Bullen, a good mate of mine, but he'd always said that this would be his walkout song if he ever competed. So I stole it off him and I pretty much asked him what if he had any good recommendations, and it's just a mad song, gets me super hype. Yeah, it says.
Do you have a name, like a
fight name? No, I haven't got one yet. Probably got a few that people have called me, but but no, nothing that's really stuck yet. So I'll work on that.
Work on that one.
But yeah, there was a cool show. So it was like a 24. There was a lot of fights. It was a big.
Huge
but the
card.
coolest thing was competing in front of people that are drinking alcohol. It was quite cool because everyone was getting a little bit loose and wild and
and it was held at night, which was like to give it a bit of background for folks. Jiu-jitsu competitions are usually during the day in a fucking indoor sports hall.
Yeah.
Or a
6 matches at
hall.
once, 6 or 8 going on.
And there's no food there. There's like one little guy selling expensive acai to go back to that. And it's like, it's a very much a sporty kind of thing. Whereas that one was like nighttime. They had a bar open. You could order some food.
Yeah, it had like a promoter.
People would dress. Like I think I wore some jeans. It's like
really put in some effort. And they had like a ring. They had an announcer who's announcing everyone. Everyone had a walkout song. So So I was actually the main event. I got pretty lucky to get the main event of the night, which was really cool. And
cool.
Yeah, and Warwick was just coming back off winning the International Brazilian Jiu Jitsu Federation's Asian Open. So the black belt, 91 kilo, the best in the Asian Pacific. He'd won that.
Wow.
So that kind of played with my head a little bit as well, where I was like, and like you said before, he's refs a lot, and I saw him reffing, and he's got his shirt on, and he's gone. He was jacked. I was like, damn, he's got some big biceps, man. I got to watch out for that. But yeah, so he'd just come off a really big title, and so that was in my head. I thought, well, this is, and I had a lot of students coming. I had a lot of 45, friends and students coming. So I was like, I got to bring the heat, and yeah, I managed to get the win on the ref's decision. I almost got the submission. I later chatting to Ulrich after, he said that I had him in a reverse triangle, and I didn't realize he said he was super close to tapping. I had locked it up, and I had his head locked with my legs quite tight, and I was looking to attack his arm while his head and arm were trapped. His other head and arm were trapped, and had I known the position I was in, I could have just kept squeezing for maybe 10, 20 seconds and got the tap, maybe even less. But my legs were burning already, and I thought, just in case I don't get the tap, I'm going to come up on top. So instead of us both laying to the side, I thought I'll come up onto my knees where he'll still be in pressure, but I'll be a little more stable. I can kind of, rest and sit on his neck and tire him out. And if he escapes, I'm still on top, as opposed to being in the previous position where if he escaped, he might get on top and I might be in a harder spot.
Yep.
And he said to me after coming on top, actually loosened it. He said he was very close to tapping, and I came onto my knees, and he said his head slid a little deeper in, or he just found some space. And I got focused on his arm and wanting to take the arm when I should have just kept squeezing his neck. So yeah, he came back pretty hard after that, but I'd had a pretty strong start and had some good positions to it. So I got the referee's decision, but yeah, it was a submission only match. So there were no points being scored. It was going to be based on who was closest to a sub or dominant if one was just completely dominating the other. But yeah, it was a really cool experience, and
it's nice that it was very friendly in that he could give you that feedback.
Well,
given that you guys probably meet again.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm sure we'll meet again. And I don't know if he would have given it straight up to me like that. I walked out of the arena as he was like chatting to his girlfriend and friends and telling that story. As he kind of looked over his shoulder and I'm right there, and so he just kind of added me in on it. So I don't think it was just like good timing. I got that little tidbit, but I was like, damn, I should have just kept squeezing. Could have had it done in 5 minutes, but. Yeah, so that was good. And it was also meant to be an 8-minute match, so all of the fights were 6, and then the main card, the 5 or 6 main fights were going to be 8 minutes. And then he bumped ours up to 10. And I was like, okay. So that extra couple minutes, though, was pretty tiring.
It was a pretty active match, too.
Yeah. So it was good. But, yeah, and he caught me he had me in a little bit of a risky spot with a couple minutes left where I was a little worried about my knee getting...
yeah, was it a
kind of picture hanging
crush?
hanging from a monkey bars off, just upside down with your legs, but it was just like one leg.
So you got the back of your knee hooked over the bar.
Yeah, and he's trying to crush my ankle to my butt with his shin in between, behind my knee. But I managed to undo it. And
is that a move?
Yeah, it's called a calf crusher.
Oh,
it's just kind of it separates your femur and your tibia. It's kind of opening your knee out, pulls it apart.
I don't like how you describe that with your hands as well.
Yeah,
it's pretty brutal.
I don't want to see that.
I could never even hang from
You'd
monkey
probably
bars,
be more likely to snap the to break your tibia.
Oof.
I think
before
the knee would separate because you're going against all the ligaments of the knee, so you probably break a bone first.
And what do you the tibia? What are the tibia and fibula? Isn't it in there?
Tibia and fibula.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's the shin bone? What's the front one? Is that your tibia?
Don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, I definitely felt it was getting pretty tight.
All the exercise physiologists out there are like, "Fucking come on, guys! How do you not know the difference?" It's your shin, guys.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a good match. And then
how do you handle that? Like going into a match like that. So you turn up. There's an arena. There's all these people. People are drinking. There's a big event. There's microphones and shit. They're yelling your name. You got walkout music, smoke machines.
Yep.
How do you handle the pressure then?
Yeah, it was a good one. What was it? It was we each had our own change room, and the change rooms were pumping because I guess there's 24 matches, so there's 48 competitors, and each room would have had 24 people in it plus their coach or whatever. So the rooms were both packed and everyone's warming up. And being the last fight, slowly as the night went on, the room whittled down. To then there's just a few fights left. There's 3 of us in there. To then the second last match is on. I was the only dude in there. Sammy was coaching me for it, and he's like, "You sweet? Do you want to warm up or anything?" I was like, "I'm pretty good. I've done some warming up. I've done some breathing meditations and stuff. I felt pretty good." And so but I was just in the room on my own, so it kind of got quite lonely at that last bit. But I felt really good. Shout out to my girlfriend Helena. She kept me held me down, kept me focused, which was something being a single for several years. I didn't realize how much a support a girlfriend can be in terms of just giving you that back of the mind confidence. I don't know. I don't know how much to attribute to that, but I think that gives me a little bit of peace of mind. And I was just willing to get out there, and I thought, win or lose, I just want to put on a good show, put on have a good match. The biggest fear is just getting submitted in 30 seconds, and the shame that would come with that. But yeah, I want to be a good example to my students and say put it on the line and don't let the result affect you. Be the fact that you're testing yourself. Let that be the best thing about it, and you don't need to win. It's more about challenging yourself and getting in there, win or lose. And I actually had taken a super fight with a no-gi, no time limit super fight previously, and it was the opposite. It was I got a good showing of people coming to watch, 25 plus students, and I got wrecked by the dude in 6 minutes. Very good guy, Glauco. And I think I wasn't fit. I took it on several weeks' notice. I definitely wasn't fit, and the fact that it was no time limit messed with my head real bad because I knew I wasn't very fit. And as the time went on, as we got in past 5 minutes, I thought, I'm having trouble getting a good position and controlling this guy. And I thought, as I get more and more tired, this is only going to get harder. And so I lost and had to actually tap in front of all my students, and I felt that burn of all my students being kind of disappointed, and I thought, man, I'm going to lose students. This is terrible. And that next week at the gym was one of the busiest weeks.
Which is absurd, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
not gonna lose.
I realized
they're
that
going to
people
love you
don't
for
care.
losing.
You know, like I was like, don't let that be something to stop me getting in there and having a go. So I thought I'd already kind of felt the worst of it in terms of losing in front of a lot of my students and friends. So, of course, I didn't want it to happen again. That was a little extra pressure. I was like, man, if I lose this one, it's going to be a tough pill to swallow. But I thought it's, you know, don't let that get to you. Just get in there and do what you do. And, yeah. And that's what I want my students to do. They're like, I'm not good enough yet. I don't think I'm good enough to win. I'm like, man, just go in there for the experience. Test yourself, you know, like, and then when you maybe are ready, when you think you've got all the skills to be the baddest white belt out there, it's not going to be your first comp. You're going to have had one or two and know what you're doing, know the ropes, and you'll have a better chance of going all the way.
Yeah.
I love that about jiu-jitsu, how the competitions in most of the gyms, it's part of your development.
For sure. I think I push a lot, you know, I don't push them hard, but I encourage my students to compete because I say, I think it'll fast track, you know, your lessons that you learn. You make a little mistake in training, it doesn't really matter. You like, forget about it. But if you make that same mistake in a comp, it might have been the difference between winning and losing the semifinals or something, or the final. That burns you, and you fix that mistake and like work on it with intent, you know. And so I think it'll definitely tighten up your gaps and your weaknesses and push your confidence up. And people that compete, I think, accelerate their training a lot.
Yeah, right. I'd agree with that, hey.
For sure, yeah.
I've always personally found, I mean, you know, comps are hard. I've always found them tough. Mm-hmm. And I found at periods like when I've got other stuff going on, like the business and things like that, I find it doubly hard to compete.
Yeah, the stress is there.
Yeah, for sure. But I know that the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yep.
It's just like anything.
That's like, as a blue belt, I kind of, probably around the time when we fought the second time, I was just starting to get the engine going, and I started to compete more. And then I got purple belt and I started winning a lot of competitions. That's when I won quite a big one, the like open weight Abu Dhabi trials, where the Sheikh puts on this awesome competition, and all around the world he puts these qualifiers where the winners, you know, maybe there's like a dozen people from Australia in all the different divisions, and several girls would, and a bunch of guys would then win a all expense paid trip to Abu Dhabi to compete in the Sheikh's World Championships. And so, yeah, I won that, and I just...
The Sheikh is the prince of Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, I don't know exactly.
But he's like royalty.
Yeah. There's a few of them, but yeah, he's like royalty. There's a couple of them, and they love jiu-jitsu, and he's put it on to all of the, you know, it's like a national sport. They're like all of the, you have to do it in primary school. Yeah. It's like a part of the, you know, all the schools provide it. And he wanted something that would keep, you know, stop his nation from becoming overweight, and would help them defend themselves, build their confidence. And he also wanted something indoors because it's so hot there. So like jiu-jitsu was the perfect kind of formula. Perfect. And so I'm sure in like, they'll be getting close, but in the next, you know, 10 years or 20 years, you have quite a lot of tough people coming through there that have been training from a young age. But yeah, so he loves it, and he put a lot of money into the sport. When you wouldn't win anything in a competition, you know, this was a really cool prize for people in Australia and other countries to win. But then also over there, you'd win cash prizes and get to rub shoulders with the best in the world, which was a cool experience for me. And then at that period, I just kept competing, and so my confidence was up. The stress I would have before a comp was lower, and that was when I was getting a lot of wins under my belt. And then you take that time off. You have to stop for an injury, or you kind of fall out of your routine, and you got to build it back up again and just get in there and keep going.
I heard I went to a seminar last week, actually, Pedro Sauer seminar. He's he's a coral belt, so he's like a red and black belt. Yeah. At Higher Jiu Jitsu in Woolloomooloo. Yep. Shout out to John who owns that. And I wanted to go because he speaks a lot about Pedro Sauer, and John just got his black belt, and I thought, I'll go check it out. And he actually told the story of how jiu-jitsu made its way to Abu Dhabi, and it was super cool. I won't go into the whole thing now, but what he was saying, he said that a couple of weeks ago, the president of Brazil was in Abu Dhabi with the Sheikh, and the Sheikh put on this jiu-jitsu display for him, and Bolsonaro was like super impressed, and is like, why don't we teach this sport in schools in my country? And he's like, you know, which was just funny because it's like, well, you know, whatever, you obviously didn't even know about it. Yeah. But he's like, I paid for all this. But apparently the story goes, the Sheikh got into it when he was in LA, brought it back. he had a brother.
That's right.
And his brother had a few children, and one of his children was, and this is all secondhand, so forgive me if I tell it somewhat incorrectly, but one of the children had autism or Asperger's or something like that, and they weren't able to really engage with others, and the kid had never looked at his father.
Right.
Kid was like, I don't know, had been around for a while, was 8, 9, 10 years old, but had never made eye contact with his dad.
Wow.
And one night at the dinner table, the story goes, the dad made a noise, I said something, and the kid looked at him and asked him something, and he like went silent and fucking broke down in tears. It was the first time.
I got chills as you said that.
Yeah, it was the first time his son had looked him in the eyes, and
he put it to jiu-jitsu.
Well, he called his brother, and he called his brother and was like, "You won't fucking believe what just happened." And his brother's like, "I'm telling you, man, that's jiu-jitsu." Like the kid had been training jiu-jitsu for like a year by that stage, and he'd been training. I think Pedro Sauer said he'd actually been coaching the kid,
right? And
he's like, the kid, like we would communicate on the mats, like we would engage in these games, and he said it was awesome. And so that the father was the minister for education.
Oh wow!
And he was fucking and he's like, all right, this is the thing.
Change that because I remember when I went there, it was the 5th year anniversary of it, and I got it. It was something like, he said, if I will gift it to my children, I will gift it to my people, or something like he'd seen the benefit in his kids, and so he was like, this was the Sheikh was saying he wanted all of the people of Abu Dhabi to get into it. And just going off on that, like in Bankstown, we actually had like an autistic boy who was quite like had strong symptoms, like he would slightly disruptive for the first weeks of class and kind of squealing or yelling, or he would have a lot of tics and nervous tics, and he had trouble listening when you'd explain techniques, but if he saw the other kids doing it, he would do it, like the warm-ups, he would be able to do them all perfectly. And then as time went on, he became a beast, like an absolute savage, where kids didn't want to go with him only because if the goal was to get around the legs and find a dominant position, he would do that on his tunnel vision and go hard for it, almost a little bit like not looking out for them. But he became very, very good, and I could see how, someone like him would struggle in sitting down writing an essay. He's not going to be able to copy what the other kids are doing in terms of that. But when it's a movement skill or like his mum thought it was the best thing, and she said that his symptoms had become much less at home, and she raved about it. So it's definitely a great sport for someone who struggles with learning the standard traditional schooling way, or has learning disabilities, I think.
So cool. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man.
Those are great, those two stories.
I know, right? Yeah, it brought a tear to my eye when Pedro Sauer saw it. I was like, fuck, man, that's powerful.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But it is, right? It's like, we talk about it a lot, it's kind of a good point for us to wrap up on, but it's sort of like jiu-jitsu gives you an outlet for like a level of physicality that you can't really express in other things. And if you're not into say like the standard sports that provide that sort of contact, like rugby union or rugby league, then you never get it. It's very hard to find it. But in jiu-jitsu, like you get beaten up, you get squeezed and squashed and stretched, and you deal with this like we've been alluding to it, like you deal with this stress in your mind, and then you have great elation when things go well, and like there's all these highs and lows, and I think that's why people love it so much.
Well, yeah, there's a cool quote what I heard, that whenever you feel anxious, that's the signal that you're going to grow. It's like your signal from your body that you're going to grow. You're doing something that is pushing you to grow, and I think you grow so much in jiu-jitsu. They say you get in tough situations and you learn to be comfortable in a tough spot. But I think jiu-jitsu is awesome because it's not just the strongest guy will be good at it. It's the thinkers. It's the people who can think about positions, or who can take that time to study. And I think I've seen a lot of students and a lot of kids who realize, hey, if this is something that normally I get beaten in all the other sports, but this is something that if I put in the time and practice or study it, I can beat these bigger, stronger kids, or these faster, more athletic kids if I just try, train harder. So that's a really cool thing about jiu-jitsu, I think, is that, you don't necessarily have to be the strongest person in the class. You just, if you're smart and you think about it, and you'll get the results, or you'll end up on top.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Man, we'll wrap it up there. We've done over an hour.
Cool.
I wanted to ask, is there anywhere, like where can people find your academy? Where can they get in touch with you?
Okay, so if you're around like the inner west, I run Gracie Balmain Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. We got a really cool school. We got students from the ages of 4 to, like I said before, 67. And we just had our team dinner last night. So we go to like one of the local restaurants or pubs and have a schnitzel and a beer and hang out. And yeah, we do kind of gi, no gi. We 7 days a week. We've got a solid team. Everyone's super friendly, super helpful, and check us out. You can
You've got quite a few females there too, huh?
Yeah, we do. We've got a lot of I really love that we've got a lot of we have mother, father, and kids training, all of them. So it happens a lot where the kids are training, the parents watch for a bit, and then they go, "Joe, are the adults classes similar to the kids classes?" And I say, "Yeah, they're a little more technical, a little less games," and they jump in. Or it goes the other way where they train and then they get in love with it, and they're like, my son, my daughter has to do it. One of my students, Aiden, he had a good story. Shout out to Aiden, one of my top students. He said he came and there was a small blue belt girl in the class, and he said he's a strong fireman. This guy is very, very strong, and he's a fireman. And I put him with this girl, Wendy, and I said, man, don't use all your strength with her, move around. And he said he remembered thinking, man, that's all I got, all I've got is my strength. So he said he tried not to use too much strength. She's toweling him up. And then he said he started to try to ramp it up. When she got a good position, he couldn't get out of the position. He said she was tapping him left and right. And he said he went home and he goes, my daughter's doing this sport 100%. He had a 3-year-old daughter at the time. Now she's 4. She's got a grey and white belt in that picture you saw. But so that was something for him, wrestling with a girl, much smaller girl, and feeling the power of it. He was like, couldn't deny how good it was. And he's like, my daughter's doing this, no matter what. So, that's what I really like, the kind of family. We've got a really cool family vibe. And you can jump on, we're on Instagram, Facebook, and the website graciebalmain.com.au if you want to check it out, read a little bit more about me and what we do.
Sick.
Sweet. Thanks for having me, boys.
Bro, thanks for coming on.
Pleasure.
That was mad.
Pleasure.
Good chat.
Cool.
And bro, I'm looking forward to your year of competition next year. Abu Dhabi trials and stuff.
Check it out. Yeah,
we'll keep an eye.
Sweet.
All right, cheers.
Thanks, boys. See you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening in. That was episode 44 with Joel Costello, the Savage. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it along with a friend. Let them know. It helps to support the podcast, and that also helps share the good word. If you guys want any help with your strength or your mobility training, or you want to know any more about what we do at Jungle Brothers, you can find us at junglebrothers.com. If you want to know more about what I do and JT does with Bulletproof for BJJ, you can find us at bulletproofforbjj.com. Same name for Instagram as well. But we've got the JITS program kicking off here in a few weeks. So get in touch, and we'll see you in the gym. Thanks, guys. Peace.